Let's solve this simple Sudoku together. So we'll start with a block that has the fewest number of empty cells. So let's look at which numbers we can see. We can see 1, we're missing a 2. We can see 3, 4, 5, 6, we're missing a 7. And we can see 8 and 9. So we know we need to fill in either a 2 or a 7 in the cell, and either a 2 or 7 in the cell. Now to find which number fits here, we'll look at the row and the column connected to each of these cells to see which other numbers we can find. The numbers 1 to 9 can only appear in a block, a row, or a column one time. So if a 2 or 7 is in one of these rows or columns, then it cannot be in this cell. So if we look at this column, straight away we can see a 2. And because this 2 is in line with the cell, it means it cannot be repeated again. And that means that this cell has to be a 7. Now if we look at the block again, we can see that we have the numbers 1 to 9, but we are still missing the number 2. That means that this cell has to be a 2. Okay, let's move on to the next block. Let's see what numbers we can see. We can see a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5. We're missing a 6. We can see 7, and we're missing 8 and 9. So in these 3 cells, we'll need to put a 6, an 8, and a 9. So let's start with this cell here. If we look at this column, we can see a 6 already. So this number here has to be either an 8 or a 9. And we look at this row here, we can see a 9. That means that this can only be an 8. Okay. Now we'll look at the entire block once again. And we see the only numbers that are missing are a 6 and a 9. So if we want to find the number that fits in here, we'll look at this column and we see there's a 6 already, which means this has to be a 9. Okay, we look at the whole block again. The only number missing is a 6. Okay, let's move on to the next block. Let's count which numbers we can see from 1 to 9. We're missing a 1. We can see 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we're missing an 8. So the number in this cell would have to be a 1 or an 8, and the number in this cell would need to be a 1 or an 8. Let's start with this one. If we look at this row, we can already see that there is a 1. And because no number can be repeated in any row, block, or column, it means that this number will have to be an 8, which means this one has to be a 1. Okay, let's move on to this block. The numbers we can see are 1, 2, 3. We're missing a 4 and a 5. We can see 6, 7. We're missing an 8 and a 9. So numbers are 4, 5, 8, and 9. Now we need to see how many of these we can exclude. So let's start with the cell. We can see a 9, so that's excluded already. We can see a 4 and a 5 in this row, which means this number can only be an 8. So the remaining numbers left are 4, 5, and 9. So if we go to this cell, if we look along here, we can't see 4, 5, or 9. But if we look along this column, we can see 5 and 9, which means that this number has to be a 4. Now the only remaining numbers are 5 and 9. If we look at this cell, we can see that there is a 5 here. That would mean that this number has to be a 9, and this number has to be a 5. Okay, let's move on to this block. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4. We're missing a 5. We can see 6, and we're missing 7, 8, and 9. So we're looking for 5, 7, 8, and 9. It starts with the cell. We can see 5, 7, and 8. The only number left is a 9. If we move on to the cell, we are looking for 5, 7, and 8. In this row, we see a 7. In this column, we see an 8. That means this number has to be a 5. Okay, we are looking for 7 and 8. If we look at the cell, we're trying to find a 7 or an 8. We can immediately see an 8 here, which means this number has to be a 7, which means that this number has to be an 8. Okay, moving on to the next block. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're missing an 8 and a 9. If we start with the cell, if we look along this row, we can see 9 here. Because it's already been used, this number has to be an 8. And that means that this cell has to be a 9. Okay, moving on to the next block. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4, which means we're missing 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay, so if we look at the cell, we can see 5, 6, 7, and 9, which means none of those can be used again, and the cell has to be an 8. Okay, now we're looking for 5, 6, 7, and 9. If we're looking for the cell, if we look down here, we can see 5, we can see 6, and along this row, we can see 9. We cannot use any of those again, which means the cell has to be a 7. Moving on to the cell, we are looking for 5, 6, and 9. We can see 5, we can see 6. That means that this number can only be a 9. Moving on to the cell, we are looking for 5 and 6. If we look along this column, we don't see any of the numbers. And we look along this row, we can see 6, which means this number has to be a 5. And that means that this one has to be a 6. Okay, moving on to the next block, we are missing 2 numbers. Let's see which ones we have. We have 1, we have 2, we're missing 3, we have 4, 5, and 6, we're missing 7, and we've got 8 and 9. So the numbers we are looking for are 3 and 7. So let's start with the cell. Can we see a 3 or 7 in this row? We don't see either of them. And in this column, we don't see either of them. So we'll jump to the next cell and try our luck there. Okay, we're looking for a 3 or a 7. Along this row, we have a 3, which means this number has to be a 7, which makes this one a 3. Okay, and on to our last block. We are missing 1, 2, 3, 4. We can see a 5. We're missing 6, 7, and we can see 8 and 9. So we're looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. Okay, let's start with the cell. We can see 2, we can see 3, we can see 4, 6, and 7. The only number left is a 1. Okay, now the missing numbers are 2, 3, 4, 6, and 7. If we jump to this cell, we can see 2, 6, 7, and 4. The only number not used is a 3. Okay, we'll move on to the cell now. Now we're looking for 2, 4, 6, and 7. So we can see 2, we can see 4, and we can see 7. The only number left is a 6. Okay, we'll jump onto the cell now. We are looking for 2, 4, and 7. We can see 2 and 7 here, and that means this has to be a 4. And in this cell, we are looking for a 2 or a 7. In this row, we can see a 2. That means this is definitely a 7. And the final cell is a 2. There you have it. That's a completed easy Sudoku puzzle.